Wealth is not built overnight, but neither is it built on chance. It is constructed brick by brick, routine by routine, choice by choice. Each day, you are either moving closer to prosperity or drifting quietly toward lack. Today, we are going to uncover the simple but powerful disciplines that transform ordinary lives into extraordinary ones. You'll learn how to shape your philosophy around wealth, how to practice consistency that compounds, and how to turn prosperity from an idea into a lifestyle. Every dollar you touch has a destiny, and you decide where it goes. Most people never pause long enough to ask the most important question before spending. Does this feed me, or does this bleed me? That one question has the power to change your financial future. Because money doesn't just disappear, it either flows into something that serves you or something that drains you. Every purchase is a vote for the future you are creating. If it is an asset, it will one day return to you with friends. If it is a liability, it will quietly drain your energy, your capital, and your peace of mind. Wealth begins to grow the moment you turn spending into investing. I remember when I first began asking myself that question. I was tempted by the same things everyone is: the shiny cars, the new gadgets, the extra comforts that don't really add much to life but somehow promise status. And I had to learn to resist. Because every time I gave in, I wasn't just spending money, I was postponing freedom. But when I redirected that same money into something productive, I began to see multiplication instead of subtraction. I wasn't just consuming, I was creating. And wealth only comes to the creators. This doesn't mean you never enjoy life. It means you make enjoyment a reward from assets, not a substitute for them. If you want a nice dinner, make it a celebration of dividend income, not a reason to dig deeper into debt. If you want a new car, let it come from passive income, not from enslaving your future earnings. When you live by this principle, luxuries become sweeter because they are funded by freedom, not by bondage. Start small. Take one recurring expense, something you buy without thinking, perhaps a subscription, an upgrade, or a comfort that doesn't move you forward. Cancel it and redirect that exact amount into an investment. Maybe it's a savings account. Maybe it's a business idea. Maybe it's stock that pays dividends. Watch what happens when those little redirections compound. Over time, the stream of income from those choices will fund pleasures far greater than the ones you sacrificed. Turning spending into investing is not about deprivation. It's about transformation. It's about teaching every dollar to work for you instead of against you. Do this faithfully, and you'll discover the true secret. The wealthy don't stop spending. They just learn to spend on assets that feed them for a lifetime. The simple shift from consumption to creation can turn the same money that keeps most people broke into the very engine that makes you free. One of the great mistakes people make is placing the entire weight of their financial future on a single paycheck. Imagine standing on one leg all day. It's possible, but it's unstable, exhausting, and fragile. The moment that paycheck disappears, so does your security. That is not freedom. That is dependency. If you truly want to build wealth, you must learn to create multiple streams of income. Because one income might keep you alive, but many incomes will set you free. I learned this lesson early, when my first business failed, and I realized just how fragile one source of income could be. The moment it was gone, everything I had depended on vanished with it. It taught me a truth I never forgot. You don't build a fortress on a single pillar. You need multiple supports. And wealth is no different. You build a foundation strong enough to withstand storms by diversifying where your money comes from. Now, multiple streams don't appear all at once, and they don't all have to be big. You might start with a job. That's fine. It pays the bills. But let that job fund something else. A small business you run on evenings or weekends. an investment account where your money grows while you sleep, maybe a piece of real estate that pays rent every month, or intellectual property like a book, a course, or even an idea you package that earns long after you've created it. Each stream starts small, but together they build a river, and rivers can carve through mountains. What I found fascinating is how even a modest second stream can change your psychology. Imagine your expenses are covered by one income, but then another stream begins trickling in. That trickle gives you margin, it gives you breathing room, and most importantly, it gives you confidence. You stop fearing the loss of one source because you have others. That is the beginning of freedom. And as you add more, the margin becomes momentum, and the momentum becomes wealth. Here's the key. Don't wait until you have enough to start building extra streams. Begin where you are with what you have. Turn skills into services. Turn ideas into products. Turn capital into investments. Most people keep looking for one big break, when, in truth, it's the accumulation of many smaller streams that builds the fortune. Relying on one paycheck is fragile, but creating multiple streams of income gives you stability, security, and ultimately, freedom. Debt is one of those silent thieves that robs your future before you even realize it's gone. It looks harmless at first, a small purchase on credit, a loan that seems manageable, but over time it compounds against you. And instead of money working for you, it works against you. I've often said that debt enslaves while investments liberate. And that's not just a clever phrase. It's the reality I watched unfold in my own life and in the lives of countless others. If you finance your lifestyle, you will eventually pay for it with your freedom. But if you finance your future, one day your future will pay for your lifestyle. When I was young, I fell into the trap of using credit as if it were income. I thought, why wait when I can have it now? That was the mistake. I was borrowing from tomorrow to pay for today, and tomorrow kept arriving with bigger bills and smaller choices. That's the cycle of bad debt. And bad debt never just takes your money, it takes your options, your peace of mind, and your ability to take advantage of opportunity when it knocks. Because when opportunity comes, it doesn't wait for you to clean up your balance sheet. It moves on to someone who is ready. That's why I became ruthless with debt. I treated every dollar I owed like a chain I had to break. I celebrated every payoff like a victory, because each one meant I was reclaiming freedom. I didn't just cut debt, I declared war on it. And you have to, because debt compounds in the dark, quietly, month after month, eating away at your progress. But once I got serious about removing it, I found something extraordinary. I had capital. Money that was once going to banks now went to investments. And investments are the opposite of debt. Where debt compounds against you, investments compound for you. Now, I'm not saying all debt is evil. There's a difference between bad debt and strategic leverage. Bad debt is buying things that rust, depreciate, or vanish, with time cars, gadgets, vacations financed on plastic. Strategic leverage is debt that produces income or assets greater than the cost of borrowing, like financing a rental property that pays you every month, or using business credit to scale something already profitable. But you must be disciplined enough to know the difference and wise enough not to blur the line for convenience. So here's the philosophy. Be ruthless with bad debt and generous with investment. Don't let banks get rich on your impatience. Build your own wealth through consistency and discipline. Every dollar that would have gone to interest can instead become your soldier marching into the marketplace to earn more on your behalf. Debt is a prison. Investment is freedom. Choose carefully which side you will live on. Certainly, draft Time is the most valuable form of capital you will ever possess, yet it's the one most people treat as though it were endless. Money lost can often be regained. Possessions broken can be replaced. But time once gone is gone forever. And that's why the way you use your hours determines the life you end up with. Every hour is a seed. If you spend it carelessly, you plant weeds that choke your future. If you invest it wisely, you plant trees that will feed you and shade you for a lifetime. When I first started out, I was guilty of wasting time, just as many people are. I spent too many evenings on distractions, too many mornings without direction. And then I realized something profound. I was trading pieces of my life for things that left me no richer, no wiser, no closer to freedom. That realization shook me. Because the truth is, your life is made up of the hours you trade away. If those hours don't build you, they diminish you. So I began to treat time like capital. I asked myself, if this hour were $1, would I spend it here? Would I waste it here? Or would I invest it where it multiplies? That simple shift changed everything. I blocked hours for learning because what I knew determined what I earned. I blocked hours for building because what I created could outlast me. I blocked hours for connecting because wealth often comes through people, through the relationships you cultivate, the mentors you meet, the partnerships you build. And here's the key. Every wasted hour doesn't just cost you that hour, it costs you the compound return of what that hour could have become. Imagine if you spent 1 hour a day learning a new skill. In a year, you would have 365 hours of practice. That's more than 9 full work weeks of mastery. Imagine what 1 year, 2 years, 5 years of that kind of investment could mean for your income, your opportunities, your wealth. On the other hand, spend those same hours scrolling, drifting, or idling, and you'll arrive at the same calendar date in the future with nothing to show but regret. Some people say, I'll get serious when I have more time. But you never get more time. You only get the same 24 hours as everyone else. The wealthy, the free, the fulfilled, they don't get extra hours. They simply invest the ones they have differently. So the challenge is clear. Guard your time with the same vigilance you guard your money. Treat every hour like seed. Plant it with purpose and watch what grows. Because your fortune is hidden inside your calendar. Wealth is never an accident. It doesn't simply arrive one day like a surprise package at your doorstep. Wealth is designed. It is planned. It is crafted with the same care as an architect drafting a blueprint for a building. You wouldn't start piling bricks and hope a house emerges by chance. Yet that's exactly how many people approach their financial lives. They work, they spend, they hope, and then they wonder why their money slips through their fingers with nothing to show for years of labor. I learned long ago that if you don't design your financial life, circumstances will design it for you. And circumstances have a poor sense of architecture. Bills will rise to meet income. Temptations will eat away at savings. Emergencies will wipe out what little margin is left. Without a blueprint, you end up building someone else's dream while neglecting your own. That's why it is essential to become the deliberate designer of your financial destiny. Start with clarity. What does financial freedom mean to you? Not a vague wish, but a specific picture. How much monthly income would buy back your time? How much net worth would give you security? How much would you like to give away in service to causes that matter to you? Write it down. When goals are written, they become visible. And once they are visible, they become attainable. Next, break that vision into targets. Income goals, savings goals, investment goals, giving goals. If your goal is to build an emergency fund equal to 6 months of expenses, put a number on it and create a timeline. If you want to invest a fixed percentage of your income, automate it. The plan must not remain theory, it must live in the details of your daily habits. I used to think that wealth belonged only to the fortunate few. But the truth I discovered is that wealth belongs to the intentional few, the ones who live on less than they earn, who put their money to work instead of letting it drift away, who see every dollar as an employee that either works for them or deserts them. And here's a principle I've seen play out again and again. What is designed gets done. When you design your financial life, your energy, your decisions, and even your subconscious begin to align with that vision, you start asking better questions before you spend. You start noticing opportunities that move you closer to your targets. You stop living by accident and start living by design. So the invitation is simple. Pick up the pen and sketch the blueprint of your financial future. Don't wait for chance to decide it. Wealth is not built in confusion. It is built in clarity, in discipline, and in intentional design. One of the greatest lessons I ever learned was to never despise small beginnings. A fortune does not suddenly appear. It starts with a single dollar. And how you treat that $1 is a reflection of how you'll treat a million. Many people make the mistake of thinking that wealth will come after they start earning big money. But the truth is, wealth is born in the discipline of handling small amounts wisely. If you casually dismiss $1 as unimportant, you're training yourself to dismiss $10, $100, $1,000. Before you know it, you've created a habit of waste. And habits don't change just because the numbers get bigger. I've met people who say, when I make more, I'll start saving. But that's not how it works. If you don't save when you earn a little, you won't save when you earn a lot. It's not the size of your income that matters. It's the size of your discipline. I remember a time in my early years when I had very little. But I made a commitment that no matter what came in, I would set a portion aside. Sometimes it was only a few dollars, but I treated it with the seriousness of a banker managing millions. That practice built a habit, and that habit became the foundation for handling larger sums later in life. Respect for the small created capacity for the big. Think of a farmer. He doesn't despise a single seed just because it's small. He knows inside that seed is the potential for a harvest. Likewise, inside every dollar is the potential for growth. If you respect it, plant it wisely, and let it multiply. But if you treat it carelessly, it will slip away, and with it goes the habit that could have built your future. So start where you are. Track every dollar. Honor it by directing it towards your goals, some toward savings, some toward investments, some toward generosity. Every dollar has an assignment. If you don't give it one, it'll find its own way, usually into someone else's pocket. Discipline with small amounts creates trust with greater amounts. Life has a way of testing you. If you can manage little, you'll be given more. But if you waste little, even the more will not last. So treat a dollar with respect. It may look small, but it is the beginning of a fortune. And when you learn to discipline the small, you are preparing yourself for the abundance of much. Wealth is not just a matter of numbers, it is a matter of responsibility. Money has a strange power. It doesn't change who you are. It simply magnifies who you already are. If you are careless with a little, you will be careless with a lot. If you are disciplined with small sums, you'll likely be disciplined when the bigger amounts arrive. That's why wealth always tests character before it rewards abundance. I've seen people who thought their financial problems would vanish if they just made more money. They imagined that an extra paycheck or a sudden windfall would solve everything. But here's the truth. Without responsibility, more money only multiplies the problem. If someone is undisciplined at one level, greater income doesn't cure it, it accelerates the damage. A person drowning in debt at $1,000 a month will likely drown faster at $10,000 a month, simply because the stakes are higher and the temptation's greater. I remember when I first began to earn beyond what I needed just to get by. The temptation was real to spend, to show off, to let lifestyle grow faster than discipline. But I realized that every new dollar was a test, not just a reward. The question was not, what can I buy? But, can I be trusted with more? Wealth demands stewardship. It requires us to account for where it goes, to protect it, to grow it, and yes, to use it wisely for ourselves and others. Think of money as a mirror. It reflects back the habits and philosophies you already practice. If your philosophy is wasteful, it will show up clearer when the amounts are larger. If your philosophy is disciplined and purposeful, greater wealth will simply magnify that clarity. That's why the greatest work we do in building wealth is not external, but internal. We prepare ourselves to handle the responsibility of fortune long before fortune arrives. Responsibility with money also extends beyond personal consumption. It involves how you manage taxes, how you protect your family with insurance, how you invest with foresight, and how you give with integrity. The greater the resources, the greater the demand for wisdom. A fortune without responsibility is a disaster waiting to happen. A fortune with responsibility becomes a legacy. So don't just chase wealth, prepare for it. Build the character, the discipline, and the responsibility now with what you have. Because money doesn't change you, it reveals you. And only when you can manage responsibility at today's level will you be trusted with tomorrow's abundance. Wealth demands responsibility, and responsibility is the true foundation of fortune. One of the great secrets of wealth is learning the art of delayed gratification. It's the simple but powerful idea that what you resist today, in terms of indulgence, becomes the foundation for what you can enjoy tomorrow. Every dollar you set aside, every impulse you delay, is not just money saved, it's money recruited into service. I like to think of each dollar as a worker. When you spend it carelessly, that worker is gone forever. But when you invest it, that worker stays on your payroll, working day and night, multiplying itself, and eventually bringing back a whole team of workers. The challenge is that human nature craves immediacy. We want the pleasure now, the reward now, the recognition now, and yet the wealthiest among us learn to push that desire forward. They understand that temporary sacrifice creates permanent opportunity. Think about a young man who chooses to skip the luxury car in his 20s and instead invests in a rental property. 10 years later, while his peers are still making payments on depreciating vehicles, he's collecting monthly rent checks and driving his dream car without debt. That is the power of waiting, of patience, rewarded. When I first started earning, I too felt the pull of shiny things. I wanted the comforts, the appearance of success. But I had to ask myself, do I want to look rich now or be wealthy later? And I learned that it's far better to build quietly, to let your money do the heavy lifting until it can afford you not only the lifestyle you desire, but also the freedom that lifestyle represents. Delayed gratification isn't about denying yourself joy forever. It's about sequencing sacrifice first, celebration later. It's about choosing the order of rewards. If you eat the seed, you'll never have a harvest. But if you plant it, water it, and wait, the harvest will be abundant enough to enjoy and still have plenty left to reinvest. Think of it this way. Each time you delay gratification, you're proving to yourself that you value your future more than your present impulses. And when your future finally arrives, it will be bigger, freer, and richer because of the choices you made in the past. So learn to wait, not with frustration, but with anticipation. Build the habit of sacrifice today so that celebration tomorrow is not a question of if, but only of when. Because in wealth, as in life, patience is not just a virtue, it's a strategy. Sacrifice now, celebrate later. That is the timeless path to freedom. Prosperity is not a finish line. It is not a number in the bank or a balance sheet that finally says, now you've made it. Prosperity begins long before those numbers ever change. It begins in the mind. It is a philosophy, a way of living, a way of thinking that you carry with you in every choice, every habit, and every conversation. Too many people chase wealth as if it were a destination, as if one day they will finally arrive, unpack their bags, and live rich forever. But the truth is, wealth is not a place, it's a process. When I was young, I thought money itself was the goal. I thought if I just earned enough, I would be secure, happy, fulfilled. But then I met people with plenty of money who were still restless, still anxious, still unsatisfied. That's when I realized prosperity is not about how much you have, it's about who you become in the process of building it. Money only magnifies the philosophy you already live by. If you live in scarcity, fear, and carelessness, even millions will slip through your fingers. But if you live with discipline, gratitude, and vision, then prosperity becomes your daily companion regardless of the amount in your account. Prosperity as a philosophy means you treat every dollar with respect, not because of its size, but because of what it represents: choice, freedom, potential. It means you live with the awareness that your time is precious and your energy is valuable, so you use both wisely. It means you give as generously as you save, because prosperity is not just about accumulation, but circulation. Money that flows through hands of wisdom multiplies in value for everyone it touches. The philosophy of prosperity changes how you see small things. Instead of saying, "It's only $10, you say, "This $10 could be the seed for something greater." Instead of saying, "It's just one wasted afternoon," you say, "That's an afternoon I could have invested in learning, building, or connecting." Prosperity is the mindset that sees seeds where others see scraps, opportunities where others see obstacles, and growth where others see grind. When you adopt prosperity as a philosophy, you stop asking, "When will I be rich?" and you start asking, "How can I live richly today in my choices, my habits, and my attitude?" Because wealth isn't only the balance of your bank account, it's the balance of your values, your discipline, and your vision. Make prosperity who you are, not just what you chase. Live it daily, practice it in small things, and eventually, the bank account will catch up. But by then, you'll realize the greatest reward wasn't arriving at prosperity, it was becoming prosperity. Discipline is the bridge between where you are and where you want to be. Fortune is not the result of one dramatic decision or one lucky break. It is the product of small, consistent disciplines repeated every day. People often think wealth is born in big opportunities, in rare deals, or in sudden windfalls. But in truth, wealth grows out of the quiet, almost invisible decisions you make when no one is watching. It's in whether you spend or save, whether you study or scroll, whether you act today or postpone until tomorrow. Neglect works the same way, only in the opposite direction. Just as daily discipline builds, daily neglect destroys. Miss a day of saving? No problem. Miss a week of learning? No big deal. Skip a month of paying attention to your finances, and you might not notice a difference, but string together years of neglect, and suddenly you wake up wondering why you are buried in debt, stuck in stagnation, or behind in the race of life. Disaster is rarely the result of one giant mistake. It's usually the accumulation of small errors in judgment, repeated day after day. I remember early in my career, I was careless with time and money. I thought small amounts didn't matter, so I spent them without thought. I thought missing 1 hour of work or 1 day of learning had no cost. But years later, I realized I had built habits of neglect. And neglect never leads to fortune, it only leads to regret. It wasn't until I embraced discipline that everything began to change. I started saving a little, reading a little, practicing a little, every single day. The amounts were small, but the impact was profound. Discipline is a compounding force. When you exercise it, the benefits don't just add, they multiply. Saving a small percentage grows into investment capital. Reading a few pages daily grows into wisdom. Practicing a skill for 30 minutes a day grows into mastery. Discipline compounds, and over time it builds a life of prosperity. But neglect compounds too, only it doesn't build, it erodes. That's why the difference between success and failure is rarely dramatic. It's simply whether discipline outweighs neglect in your daily choices. So the question is not, will you have discipline? You already have discipline, just applied in different ways. Some are disciplined about neglect. They are consistent about skipping, postponing, wasting. Others are disciplined about progress. They are consistent about showing up, investing, and building. Both are habits, both compound. Only one leads to fortune. Wealth is built one choice at a time, one day at a time. Discipline creates the foundation, neglect tears it down. Choose discipline daily, and one day the world will call you fortunate, but you'll know it was never luck. It was the fruit of your discipline. Formal education will give you the tools to make a living, but self-education will open the doors to a fortune. The school system is designed to help you survive, to function in society, to earn a paycheck, and to fit into the economic machine. And there's nothing wrong with that. It is necessary. But if all you rely on is what the system teaches you, you will live within its limits. If you want to go beyond survival and step into abundance, you must take your growth into your own hands. Think of it this way. Formal education is a foundation, but self-education is the expansion. The foundation will give you stability, but expansion is what gives you possibility. Most people stop learning once they leave the classroom. They hang the diploma on the wall and think the job is done. But success belongs to those who continue their education long after graduation, those who study not because they must, but because they choose to. I remember when I was starting out in business, I didn't have special skills or connections. What I had was a hunger to learn. I read books on wealth, on leadership, on communication, on human behavior. I listened to recordings, I attended seminars, I sat in the back of rooms where successful people shared their stories, that education wasn't assigned, it wasn't graded, but it changed my philosophy, it sharpened my skills, and it shaped the man I became. When you study wealth, you learn that money is not just numbers, it's a reflection of value. When you study people, you discover how to influence, connect, and build relationships that open doors. When you study leadership, you realize how to guide, inspire, and multiply the efforts of others. These subjects are rarely emphasized in school, but they are the subjects that determine the trajectory of your life. The truth is, the marketplace does not pay you for what you know in theory. It pays you for the value you bring in practice. And the more you grow yourself, the more valuable you become. If you want to double your income, don't start with money, start with yourself. Invest in your skills, your mindset, your habits, and the fortune will follow. Self-education is the great equalizer. You may not have been born with wealth. You may not have gone to the finest schools. You may not have started with advantages. But if you are willing to study, to read, to learn, to apply, you can rewrite your story. Every book you open, every mentor you seek, every lesson you apply is a seed that can grow into a harvest of opportunity. So don't stop at what school gave you. Keep learning, keep studying, keep growing. Because while education may give you a living, only self-education will give you a fortune.